get ready, my child. The time we're losing is driving me wild. Everybody's gone, let us move along. No more hesitating, cause the rig is waiting. And Meetin service has started, you know. That's why I'm nervous. Go, if you are ready, we'll be on our way. I feel so happy and gay. It can't be today, it's great, can't be today. Everybody's glad, ain't nobody sad. Folks all dressed the best, grand tap and the rest.
Hello space engineers, welcome back to Hephaestus Prime. I'm Wellington6012. How are you all doing today? I hope everybody is all fit and well. So here I am, standing on my drill, which, I don't actually have a name for this yet. That's something I'll have to have a bit of a think about and remedy. So anyway, what is on the cards for today? Well, first of all, I'm going to show a bit of what I've done just since the end of the last episode. I have done some sort of stuff off camera, which wasn't exactly related to this game. It was more to do with uploading a blueprint or two to the workshop. And while that was happening, I just had this drill ticking away, and it's really just been running quite well. It's just gone without a hitch, really. Slowly, but without a hitch. So it has actually been quite reassuring that I can just let it go in the background, because there were periods where I was away from here for a while and I came back and yeah, it was still just running sweet as. So its robustness of its operation is really proving to be quite reassuring, especially given the headaches and trials and tribulations it took to build the thing. So as I said, we'll have a look at what I got up to off camera, and I'm going to run through the operation of this drill again, just go through it so you have an idea of how it all works, because I know I rushed through it the last episode, but I think just recovering that and showing an operation might be quite good. And then I'm going to make a bit of a drone that can follow me over to Treasure Island. So I want to set up a bit of an autopilot relay type drone just to keep the materials coming back. And yeah, over at Treasure Island we'll get into that and see about chopping the thing up and bringing it back here, because I do need the steel plate. I'm ripping through that, as you might have guessed by looking at that massive deck that's been laid out. So I've also put a screen on here just so I can keep track of the steel, make sure I don't run out. So you can see there's 7,000 still in there, so that'll keep going for a little while. And I've put these connectors and a conveyor underneath just so I can hook up to a conveyor system every now and then. I've just missed the opportunity with that last push, so the drill machine's not in the right place to link up this time around, but I will do that next time. So that'll just make it a little bit easier to transfer the materials into the onboard cargo containers. And I did add a few pieces of conveyor to the blueprint, which in theory the welders get, but no, just looking at that, the welder up here hasn't reached, so that's a bit of a mission to get down that low, and you'd need the interior plates and that sort of thing, so that's probably not a bad thing it doesn't get that. So just looking at these merge blocks, you can see I've got 4 there, and that grinder is facing the backwards direction. I mentioned that sort of last episode that was causing a few problems, and this layout now fixes that completely. And in fact, even though you see double landing gears there, double ones aren't required because it works so well, only a single one is needed, but I thought I'd just leave them as they were. Change those to pink because they're only temporary. We'll have to think about moving those wind turbines. I've got a bit of an idea what I want to do there, and yeah, a pretty decent length of sort of, well, runway for want of a better word, or access into the mountain, and still a bit further to go. And I am a bit concerned about what impact it will have on game performance lag, just with the size of the station, but we'll just have to cross that bridge when we get to it. Now I thought I'd just go through the setup of this whole cycle with the timers and sensor and that sort of thing, and the pistons. So the sensor is the key part to this, and it's the first time I've sort of used it in this sort of way to act as a switch to reset the whole cycle. Now I've got it set to detect subgrids, so that when the drill head is close to the main unit, it will just work and push in. But when it reaches one block out, then that's the trigger for it to stop and retract. And one of the things that when it retracts, it's a timer that does that, so multiple options on the timer. When it retracts, it speeds up, so I don't have to wait for the time it takes to get to that point, which is going, think about 0.005 per minute, something like that, so it's very, very slow. And whenever I've tried to make machines or even just theorize these types of machines, I've always used a sort of shuffle type effect to overcome that. But yeah, using these sensors and changing the speed of the pistons using a timer it's a bit of an awakening for me, really. So there's that timer there in the non-triggering part of the sensor. So when the subgrid is within range of the sensor, it won't trigger, but when the subgrid drops out of the range of the sensor and disengages the sensor, that then will trigger the timer. That timer that it's triggering, once I find it, there it is, does quite a few things. First of all, it retracts the drill arm piston and speeds it up so it does it quicker, as I talked about just before. It turns off the drill, turns off the rotor and the warning lights that I've got going. It turns on the landing gear and locks it. Now the reason why it was turned off is because I have it switched off while it's locked to maintain the lock, because if you have it switched on while it's locked, sometimes it does unlock itself, which is a bit bizarre. And then there's the timers that it starts. One is the next step of the process, but there's also these external timers as well. So one is a delay to trigger the other one once the unit has unlocked, once the merge blocks have separated. And then that one just continually recycles, it just resets all the time, so that when I get the merge blocks make a new lock, it will then have a path to trigger one of the timers that's on board the machine. And that next onboard timer, that will cancel the rotating external one, and then it will start the process of pushing the rig to the next merge block, and it'll stop at the right position. The piston I've set for the correct length, and it'll get there and stop in position with a bit of delay before the merge block locks in, so that it doesn't try and grab it and whip it in too early, because that seems to damage the piston quite a bit. Then the welders and projector turn on, they do their thing for a few seconds, and then the drill head and extending piston restart. And then a little while later the landing gears will unlock and reset that piston. So I'll step you through how it goes as it's doing it, and I think it's just about ready to kick into the next cycle. Some space thingy up there, Sky Factory. Yeah, a 9-minute cycle, so it goes quite slowly to do one block, but given it's quite reliable, oh, there it goes, it's just kicked in, quite reliable, I can leave it, so I'm happy that it goes slow and works. So that sensor is sped up and retracted that piston, turned off all the drills and everything, and it's also triggered those other timers. And now the block is being pushed, gets rid of that one at the back there, and gets in the position, and then those are still ticking away. This will lock in a second. There we go. And now that timer that was down there is able to connect to the one that's up there and trigger the next phase, which is the welding. So they've all welded up, and there's the next merge block for next time. And then it will turn back on. There we go, the welders are just turning off now, and there it goes, ready to go again. And then these landing gears will turn on and unlock. As I sort of said before, the reason why they're turned off is so that they stay locked, because if you have them turned on, then they can unlock by themselves, whether that's through pressure or vibration, that sort of thing. Even though I thought they were pretty bulletproof and pretty strong, they're not. They do actually come unlocked, or even break and fail that way, or explode. I've seen all of that happen. Then of course there's the self-inflicted accidentally pressing the Y button as well, that'll do it. So turn them off while they're in the locked position is actually quite a good little safety tip. Okay, so let's get on with our day and get building and head over to the pirate base. Okay, so my plan is to make a drone that will come over to the treasure island with me, and I'll have it set up on automatic pilot, so I'll fly over in the flyer and do some stuff there. And what the drone can do is sort of shuttle back and forth. Now, rather than sort of setting up a landing gear to go off, I've just put these plates down, and I'll just place this connector on top of those plates, because it still actually does connect through them. So I'll just give that a little bit of a shove into the right spot. That should do. And then I'll pop a medium cargo container on top. So it's not going to carry a lot of stuff, but like the drill, it's a case of perseverance, and slowly but surely you'll win the race. There's also the factor about not overloading it too. Chances are it'll be on automatic shuttling, and a sorter will push it full of stuff, and that way it'll have to be able to cope with whatever it picks up. I won't be able to necessarily keep an eye on what it's actually picking up. And there could be some heavy objects that, even though it's got plenty of volume, it isn't able to lift off. And we saw that with a fly. You know, I had 2 container loads full of those gravity components and it didn't lift off. Whereas 1 container load of gravity components, it was able to lift off the ground. So that's why I'm just gone with a single one rather than a double. Now, multiple days of working on that miner and haven't got a name for it, yet I was working on this drone for about 30 seconds and decided, yeah, I'm going to call it a grapefruit. Because of the shape, of course, it kind of will probably end up looking like a pumpkin actually. But I figure grapefruit, there's going to be several of these, I imagine, and they could have different functions. So I could have multiple versions of this ferrying between multiple locations, for instance, a drill site or something like that. But then I might have some which are ferrying to remote weapons installations, topping them up, that sort of thing. And so I figured grapefruit, and some of the other ones, I might do a yellow one, which could be called a lemon, and I could do a green one, which could be called a lime. And I did think that with these, I probably will have a separate sort of drone hangar for them that they can go in and out of by themselves without using the main base. So that's all just ideas floating around in my head that hopefully I'll get out. So I'm sort of going to go with a round type shape, which will be quite sort of skeletal in its construction, so they'll be quite light and airy. Yeah, sort of hard to describe. I don't even know what my sort of inspiration is for them. I mean, I do watch quite a bit of sci-fi stuff, but I can't think where I've seen this type of thing before. Sort of the idea I've got in my head seems vaguely familiar, but I'm not too sure where I sort of saw it. One thing that did inspire me though was the Borg sphere. When it leaves its hangar or leaves one of the ships, it exits out of a round hangar door. Yeah, that's sort of what I wanted to do with the hangar for these drones. So that'll just be in the side of a mountain and they'll just pop in and out of there. I reckon that'll look quite cool if I can pull it off. Potentially I think I could even weaponize one as well. Sort of have a pair of Gatling turrets on either side, and that would kind of give the look of maybe one of the drones off the Tom Cruise movie, which just escapes me right now. Oblivion, that's the one. So yeah, it could have that sort of look, and that would probably be a camo green, and I'd call it a lime. So you can see the sort of shape I'm trying to achieve here with the slope blocks. I will put these thrusters on, the horizontal ones at this level, and then I'll continue the circle up to the top, and then I'll have some, I'll have a ring as well linking those up, so it'll look round as it can be with square blocks. So I'm just going to focus on this quadrant initially and get that sort of how I want it. And then what I'll do is one of my montage sped up type things to race through the rest of it. Now I have to set up a antenna. Now I'll probably just have it set for quite low range, and I'll use the base antenna, which actually I have to put one of those on, as the sort of main one. So that'll have a range to get to the pirate base that's 25 k's away. And I'll have to put one in the pirate base so that can talk back to the main base here, and then I can piggyback off those to talk to the grapefruit. So what that means is once the grapefruit actually lifts off and gets sort of out of range, or a few hundred meters out from this base, it'll be kind of on its own really. I'll lose track of it and just hope it sort of turns up at the other end. But the reason for that is just so it doesn't attract any nasties as it flies along, and also the antennas can be quite power hungry as well when they're set to quite a large range. Now I need to pop some remote controls on. I think I'm going to put 4 on, and I'll just put them on the top of these arms, so there'll be one pointing in each direction, not because they're pointing in each direction, more so that I can have multiple autopilot programs going, because I might have one to go to Treasure Island and then one back from Treasure Island, and then I may have a 3rd or 4th one for other tasks, so maybe one goes over to the trading post or something like that. So just make sure that these are facing the right way. And I will have a main one, and then I'll have to figure out somewhere to put a camera for each of them. Just going with the single downward thruster. Just going to use a proper atmospheric thruster this time, rather than the ion one like I used on the flyer. Now we'll need to fit some timers on here somewhere as well. So that's kind of like a automatic docking or launch system. So similar to what I've done on the drill, which is to have a timer going that the autopilot will set off when it's sort of in position to dock. And that timer will just automatically repeat until it gets a lock. And then once it gets a lock, that will create a path to a timer that's on the main base, and that timer can then send a message back to the timer that's on the Grapefruit to stop trying to lock because it's already locked, and then it can initiate the actual shutdown procedure of putting the battery on recharge and also turning the thrusters off. So I think I'm just about there now with the sort of setup, so you can sort of see the shape there. Just not really happy with that last little angle there. I don't think it's quite right. Just looks quite straight rather than round. Stand by, I'll just quickly fix that. I think the shallower is the way to go, the shallower slope, and I can just put a little corner piece in there. I think that'll work better. Yeah. So what I'll do is just weld frame up, and just so we can get a better idea of how it looks. And then I think I'll go to the montage thing and rip through this and finish it off so we can go for a fly over to Treasure Island. I'll also include in that the setting up of the timers, because that can be quite time consuming, but hopefully you get a little bit of an understanding of what I'm talking about, even with the sped up footage. one ripe grapefruit ready for harvest. Really happy with how that's come out. Put some lights on there, the typical aeronautical lighting setup. I did put on some reactors. Now they're only little ones and they're quite cheap to produce. They only used a couple of reactor components just to give it a little bit more power, because when I did lift off, because of all the engines, it was surging the battery a little bit, so I figured wouldn't be a bad idea to put a little bit of extra power in there. Also good for those long duration type flights. Right, time to get moving. The day is romping on. We're definitely over halfway. So want to get to Treasure Island before it gets dark. Now, just before I go, I'll grab some of these silicons and also the canvases. Just a couple of outstanding acquisitions that I've got with the trading post, so I can fill those off on the way there. Okay, that's all sorted, so we'll jump into the flight and we'll head over to Treasure Island. I'm going to drop some GPS marks along the way that I can use to program up the Grapefruit to follow me over. Alright, should speed up that trip in the edit and get here a bit quicker. Laid down a few GPS markers along the way for the Grapefruit to follow, so I'll just have to program that in now. And it's not on the list. Maybe my antenna's not turned up. I'll just use this one on the flyer, and yep, 500 meters. How about we put that up to 25k, that should now reach. Still not there, but we'll jump into the drill machine because that's the antenna that's there and it should connect through to that via the connector, and we'll head down and program one of these remotes. So there's 4 on there, so I can put in different programs for different tasks. We'll use this one that I've got on the port side here. I'll try and keep the one that's forward sort of free because that is the main one that it will default to. If I'm in one of the remotes, it can actually be quite hard to turn on the automatic pilot while you're in there, so it's quite good to sort of turn it on from either externally or from another remote. For each of the remotes I do have an individual camera, and then there's just a single one that points down. Now I'll load all these waypoints up. The first one that I put in is the approach to the dock, so that's the first one while taking off, but most important when it comes back to land. Instead of sort of having the dock as the direct one, it can overcook it quite easily coming in, so it's good to have that one just a bit further away for it to slow down, and then it'll just get itself in the right position and then just slowly park itself in the dock. Now I'll put an action on the first one, which is to speed it up and turn the precision mode off so that it doesn't have to get exactly on the spot for hitting those waypoints, and speeds it up, which is more so the reverse of what it'll do when I slow it down at the other end, so it's just resetting it essentially, which I'll do on the nearby waypoint that I've already got programmed. And then when it eventually arrives overhead, I have to jump into the remote itself so I can program the last GPS coordinates. Okay, so let's get this thing on its way. I've got a timer set to launch it, so that turns everything on and gets it going. Now it's off the ground, it's got its own thing which I can jump into. And so now we're in the control of it. And there's the camera, and it's raining back at the main base. Okay, so we'll turn this autopilot on, and fingers crossed, we're off. Just getting the right camera. Here we go. Yeah, the weather certainly is quite grotty over here, which is odd. I thought the weather algorithm, for want of a better word, linked to the individual player. So I thought it sort of followed me rather than randomly at other places. But never mind, one of life's mysteries. It's gone out of range of the antenna that's back at the main base. So yeah, fingers crossed it turns up. So we'll just do some stuff here, put a connector and that sort of thing. I'll just chuck these items in the inventory there, so for the trading post, so I don't forget them and accidentally dump them into a container or something. So, whoops, I was just about to say I'll be careful not to fall through there. We need some connectors, so I'll use these ones for parts. Connectors, conveyors, and then we will need some parts for the connector as well. Just go with my temporary pink. So I'll just reinforce that so I can chop this off the bottom. I'll need to put a conveyor block in there, one of the splitters, and then put these conveyors in and a connector. I am getting the odd part out of that container to finish these things off, but most of the time I'm just salvaging. Now I do need to put a timer in for the phase 2 for the lock, as something's just appeared over there. There's a timer there that I can use, and I'll set it up down by those batteries and solar panels, since that'll be the sort of last piece that I'll be destroying here. While I'm there, I'll also put in an antenna. I'll just do a small one and use a rotor to adapt that down. There's no point going for a big one. Now the timer was just for confirming the lock of the connector when the drone comes, when the Grapefruit arrives. And it will be the phase 2 timer. It can just use the phase 1 and phase 3 that are already existing. It'll just work in with those. So I'll add that small head. This build vision is quite useful, and I am getting used to it slowly. I still tend to press escape rather than the shift middle mouse click, so that's why you occasionally see the save menu come up. And with much relief, the Grapefruit did indeed arrive unscathed. So it's just hovering overhead, so I'll jump into it just to get these last couple of coordinates, and then I'll remotely land it and get that last coordinate. You really need to be actually in the remote control for the particular coordinate for the autopilot, because when it comes to line up for the connector, you do need to be sort of within a block, and using another remote that's somewhere else on the aircraft can make a difference, or using a totally different vehicle altogether, or your jetpack. So once again, got that approach waypoint, which is close to the connector just for that final lineup, and it'll go nice and slow after that. Then line this up and touch down. So we've got our timer there that'll switch off. I'll need to program that up. I'll just put a waypoint in for the dock connection. Now this will only work with this remote, otherwise it'll be off center. So I'll just go through this timer setup again, the 3 timers that I use to automatically lock these vehicles in. The first one is on the vehicle itself, and when it gets close it just starts automatically reoccurring, so that when it's able to make a connection to the connector it does it automatically, so even if it just does a glancing blow or something it'll still latch on. And then that is able to trigger the number 2 timer, which is this one here I'm programming, on the actual base. And then once that base receives the signal from the one that's locked the connector, it can then send another signal instruction back to the third one that's on the vehicle. So getting that solid connection is able to create the path for these to interact. And I can just use the same timers, so this third one, I'll just pop the one that's on the base in there, so I've still got room for 6 more bases in there. And you can see the ones faded for the main base. So there we go. Might just give that a test run actually. Awesome. Automatically locked and shut down and recharging. Alrighty then, as the sun goes down behind the hill, I think we're just at a point where we're going to be able to call it a day now. We'll just do a quick turn and burn and get this heading back to the main base with a load of steel on board. Ooh, that's quite heavy. Might just put some lighter items in the connector just to fill it up. Because there's a bit of weight in there. I wonder if there's something lighter I can do just to provide a bit of volume. There's no point overburdening it, just to fill it up with light things later. Now I've already programmed one of the other remotes with the waypoints in the reverse order to get it back. So I'll just kick that into gear now, put it on autopilot. It's still lashed to the ground with the engines turned off, so it won't go anywhere. But when I do let it loose, it'll go. Let's just get one of these cameras going. So that's the one. And launch it. And away we go. Oh, well, that got off the ground alright, even with all that weight in it. So as we watch the Grapefruit head off into the sun on its solitary journey back to the main base, we'll call that a day. So I'm going to hang around here at Treasure Island and work through the night. That'll be the next episode, where I'm intending to try and get a bit of a plan together for salvage and to get some of this bulk stuff back to the main base so I can use it there, because I am running a bit short of stuff back there. I did have to disassemble some ammo and a few metal grids and stuff like that because I actually ran out of iron. So yeah, I do want to get some of these components back and start to break down the space. So as the sun just finally ducks behind the hill, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I did enjoy today actually making that grapefruit, although I'm enjoying every day. Yeah, we'll catch you next time. Stay safe out there. Have a good one.